Welcome to Calvin's Online Math. Let us look at this interesting Olympiad equation. So we have 7 raised to the power cos squared of x plus 7 raised to the power sine squared of x is equal to 8. So the first thing would be to multiply both sides of this equation by one of these expressions. So let us use 7 raised to sine squared of x to do the multiplication. So we have 7 raised to sine squared x into 7 raised to cos squared of x plus 7 raised to sine squared of x, that's equal to 8 times 7 raised to sine squared of x. So that we have 7 raised to sine squared of x times 7 raised to cos squared of x plus 7 raised to sine squared of x times 7 raised to sine squared of x, and that's equal to 8 times 7 raised to sine squared of x. So from here we just use the laws of indices to do the multiplication. Remember, according to the laws of indices, if you have a raised to power n and you want to multiply that by a raised to power m, then you'll have a raised to the sum of m and n. So we can apply that to simplify this. So for the first one, we have 7 raised to sine squared of x and 7 raised to cos squared of x. So we just have 7 raised to sine squared of x plus cos squared of x plus the second pair, that is 7 raised to sine squared of x and 7 raised to sine squared of x. That will be 7 raised to sine squared of x plus sine squared of s. So we have sine squared of x there. And then on the right hand side, we'll have 8 times 7 raised to sine squared of x. So now we can simplify the powers. For the first one, look at this. This relates to a trigonometric law or identity. That is, if you have sine squared of x plus cos squared of x, that is the same as 1. So we can use this to simplify the first expression, so that we have this will be 7 raised to power 1 plus this is sine squared x and sine squared x, so we have 7 raised to 2 sine squared of x, and that equals 8 times 7 raised to sine squared of x. So now we can rewrite this power differently. We can interchange them so that we have 7 raised to power 1 is just 7, then you'll have this as 7 raised to sine squared of x, and then you raise it to these two here. So that is equal to 8 times 7 raised to sine squared of x. So as you can see, 7 raised to sine squared of x is common. So we can let 7 raised to sine squared of x be a letter y. So then we write this equation differently, so that we have 7 plus this is y squared is equal to 8y. So we can write this as y squared minus 8y plus 7 equals 0. So now we have a quadratic equation that we can solve using factorization method. And for us to do that, we're going to look for two numbers whose sum is the same as b. And b in our case is minus 8. And their product is the same as a times c, that is 1 times 7, which is just 7. So we can use this product to obtain the two numbers. For you to be able to get 7 from a product of two numbers, you have 1 times 7, and if you try adding 1 to 7, it is not giving you a sum of 8. So again, you try negative 1 times negative 7. The product gives you 7 and the sum gives you 8. So the two numbers are negative 1 and negative 7. So we can rewrite this equation as y squared minus y minus 7y plus 7 equals 0. So we can change, we can see that the common factor for the first two is y. So we have y into y minus 1. So we expect that to be here too. So for us to have obtained positive 7, it means we multiply negative 1 by negative 7, and that equals 0. So here you take the ones that are outside the bracket, that is y minus 7, and then you multiply by the ones in the bracket, that is y minus 1, and that equals 0. So now these are product of two numbers and you're getting 0. So it means that either y minus 7 is equal to 0, so that y is equal to 7, or y minus 1 equals 0, so that y equals 1. So we can recall that we expressed y as some function. So we said that 7 raised to sine squared of x is equal to y. So we can use this information to obtain the value of x. So in this instance, y is 7, so that equals 7. So for us to solve for x, we can write 7 as 7 raised to power 1. So the base are the same. We have 7 and 7. So it means the powers must also be the same, so that we have sine squared of x equals 1. Then on this side, 7 raised to sine squared of x equals 1, because the value of y is 1. But we can write 1 as 7 raised to power 0, so that you have 7 raised to sine squared of x being equal to 7 raised to power 0, so that we have sine squared of x equals 0. So for us to get the value of x from this, we can get the square root of both sides, so that we have sine x equal to plus or minus 1. And we do the same for this, so that sine of x equals 0. So we have two values, not two values, but three values of sine of x. So let us list them. So we have sine of x equals, from this, there are two values. There is minus 1, and then there is sine of x equals positive 1, and then from this, sine of x equals 0. So we can now get the value of x by obtaining the sine inverse of each of these. So for the first one, sine, when you take that sine of x equals negative 1, so it means therefore that x can be given by taking the sine inverse of negative 1, and the sine inverse of negative 1 is 270, which we can write as 3 pi over 2. So that is the first value. And then we can also do the same for when sine of x equal to positive 1. So we take that x is equal to the sine inverse of positive 1, and the sine inverse of positive 1 is 90 degrees, which can be written as half pi. Then for this case, when sine of x is 0, this occurs at 2 points. So we say that x is the sine inverse of 0, and the sine of inverse of 0 can be 0, or it can be 180. So now remember, we can write this as 0, and 180 can be written as pi. So remember, we are not given the limit within which we were to get the value of x. So we can edit this, so that for this case, for the first case, this is the primary sine inverse of negative 1. But remember, since we do not have the limits, we can use the period for the sine function. And the period for the sine function is given by 2 pi. So we can say, therefore, that generally the value of x when sine of x is negative 1 can be given as 3 pi over 2 plus the period times the number of circles on the unit circle. Then for this case, when we're looking at sine x is equal to 1, x will be given by pi over 2, that is 90 degrees, plus the period of the sine function times the number of circles that are made on the unit circle. Then for the case where sine of x is 0, this occurs at 2 points. So it will repeat after every pi degrees. So in this case, the value of x will be 2 times, not 2, but n, the number of circles times pi. So it will be pi n. So those are the three possible values of x. So for this case, x will be 0, pi, 2 pi, like that, depending on the number of circles that are taken around the unit circle. So the first value of x will be this. The second value of x will be given by this. And the third value of x can be given by that. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to my channel. Thank you and see you in the next video.